It's time to break you down a Kirby episode. So, Lolo and Lala, some minor boss characters turned useless side characters, we get their origin story here. A thing absolutely no one on the planet was asking for, no one wanted, and is not even slightly applicable to the games. The thing we care about that this show is advertising. I still haven't gotten an explanation on why Lolo and Lala were renamed Fololo and Falala for the English dub. Fucking 4Kids usually doesn't just rename characters that were already established beforehand for an English-speaking audience, with at least one or two glaring exceptions. I'm wondering if it has anything to do with some kind of copyright garbage about the adventures of Lolo games, but that's just a guess. I don't actually know, obviously, so I will keep calling them just Lolo and Lala, because in either the original or dub, that's part of their name, so I'm not wrong in either language. To start off this episode, Dedede orders Lolo to go get his fortune, because he has all the self-respect of a middle-class housewife who calls phone psychics. Lolo and Lala are ready to get going when Escargoon orders Lala to stay behind. They refuse as they do everything together and have never once left each other's sides. Dedede gets unreasonably angry and orders the two of them to split up or he's gonna throw them out. There's no good reason stated as to why they want Lala to stay behind so much. In the original, they told Lolo to go get the fortune while Lala would stay behind and give Dedede a shoulder massage. That's weird and awkward, so I get why they didn't include that in the dub, but they also didn't replace it with anything either.
No reason for you both to go. Lolo can fly over to the fortune teller alone.
So, the conflict of the story is Lolo and Lala really don't want to separate, and they're sad about it, and Dedede's mad.
You do as I say and split up, or both of you is out of here!
A conflict solely set up for this specific plot that will never ever happen again.
Throw you out? Why?
Because they contribute nothing to the show? Lolo and Lala are in a codependent relationship. Meanwhile, Lady Like is scolding Tough over something or other. It doesn't matter.
If we don't teach Tough discipline, who will? After all, we are his parents.
I mean, when it's convenient for us. I guess their desire to never split up causes Lolo and Lala to ask Sir Ibram and Lady Like where exactly they came from, as they seem to not remember. Ibram and Like really don't want to answer that question, and after shooing everyone out, the two of them proceed to exposit at each other a retelling of an event for which they were both present for and both remember. Oh my god, how do you manage to manspread when you don't even have legs? See, when Tiff was an angry-looking baby, Lolo and Lala were just kind of dumped on them by Dedede. They then offhandedly mentioned that after that, they found out that Lolo and Lala used to actually be one person.
Soon after, we learned they'd come from a strange monster named Fofa, which had, it turns out, been split into two creatures.
Quite the big reveal to just nonchalantly say in passing. Maybe we should have saved that reveal for near the climax of the episode. When you deliver it like that, you make it feel like it's not a big deal, when it really kind of should be. This is such an out-of-nowhere concept, too. Lolo and Lala used to be one person named Fofa in English and Lola in the original. Lolo and Lala, in the Adventures of Lolo games at least, are boyfriend and girlfriend, so having them effectively be twins here feels kinda weird. In the Kirby games themselves, it's not clear if they're in a committed relationship, but I'm gonna take a wild guess and say they probably are. They, at least, were certainly never two halves of one person. In fact, they don't have much of anything in common with their game counterparts. They've never aimlessly pushed around one block in the entire series. So, Sir Ibram and Lady Like want to keep the information that Lolo and Lala were ever one person for them because they think it will make them sad. I don't know why Lolo and Lala don't remember it themselves. Maybe they just hit their heads really hard when Dedede threw them and now they have a very minor case of serious brain damage. But wah wah, Kirby overheard their conversation of the information that they both know yet discussed out loud anyway. And because he's a stupid baby, his first instinct is to just repeat these words like some kind of inconvenient parrot. So Dedede gets his stupid fortune, and the fortune teller basically says to not cause problems on purpose and to fucking pay them already.
It says, if you look for trouble, your trouble will double. Oh.
Is your fortune teller Team Rocket? Fun fact, both the voice of Dedede and Escargoon Ted Lewis voiced James in the first few episodes of the Pokemon dub, before the role was taken over by Eric Stewart, voice of Meta Knight here. Dedede gets mad, and the only coping skill he knows is ordering monsters, so that way everyone can be dragged into his petty tantrum. Monster Man offers him a deal on a monster called Slice and Splice, since he's a preferred customer.
I'm a preferred customer? You bet. Great.
What must the others be like?
You know, I never thought about that before. How many other people use this service? How useful is a monster delivery service? Are there multiple petty assholes across the galaxy also trying to terrorize tiny little people that aren't really a threat to them? Also, I'm just realizing that Dedede's got a teleporter specifically for this, and nothing else. Why isn't this amazing cross-galaxy teleportation technology more utilized in Dreamland? Unless Dreamland doesn't have this technology and this was also from Nightmare Enterprises, in which case, how did Dedede even stumble upon enemy? I feel like I'm asking about things I was never meant to question. Alright, anyway. He's got Slice and Splice, which is a robot-looking thing that is not from the game that chops people up and mixes their body parts together. And when I word it like that, it sounds like some kind of human centipede or Tusk-style horror movie. No, see, it actually mixes up people's heads and stuff in a comedic fashion, as if they were Legos. He does this by using magic staffs that are modeled after Mr. Shine and Mr. Bright, a couple of enemies from the games. You fight them initially in Kirby's Adventure, then several subsequent games, and Marks makes them fight each other in Superstar. I mean, I assume that was them. They were never named, but it'd be weird if it were a different living sun and moon. But here, they're just some staves. Inanimate objects for the real villain of the episode to use. We're not gonna put actual enemies from the games in, but by God, we'll dangle their image in front of your face just to taunt you fucking nerd. Like, alright, get ready, I'm actually gonna be mad about this for a second. This here. These little inanimate object cameos of Mr. Shine and Mr. Bright. Who is this for? Because anyone who's already a fan of Kirby watching this is going to be pissed that they are just a non-living cameo attached to this made-up villain instead of them just actually being the villains, and any kid you're trying to attract to the games with this show isn't going to care. The show isn't like Captain N or something where the writer admitted he maybe played a level of each game that he was forced to write for and basically didn't care about being any sort of faithful to it. No, the people who worked on this know Kirby. This was overseen by Nintendo, people who worked on the game, by Sakurai even. These had to have all been deliberate choices, and ones I will never quite understand. This isn't even the only time in the series this happens either. I distinctly remember a Poppy Brothers Jr. being shown in a cameo at NME, only for him to never actually be important to any part of an episode. And oh my god, is that Mr. Frosty? Why are you taunting me like this? Back to the hijinks. Slice and Splice shows Dedede how he works by switching up his and Escargoon's heads. They're quickly switched back and quip at each other, which now that I think about it, Dedede and Escargoon bickering probably takes up 12 minutes of screen time per episode.
One thing's sure, that's the first time in your life you had a good head on your shoulders.
Yeah, well, it was real easy to carry because there wasn't nothing in it.
At least I don't have a waist size bigger than my IQ.
Normally I'd beat your head in for saying that, but damn, that was funny, boy. Having proof of concept, Triple D takes Slice and Splice into town to torment anyone and everything in his path, and has Mr. Slice and Mr. Splice mix up all the cappies with sheep. These sheep just cannot catch a break. Also, I'd just like to point out that Sheep Kawasaki is, like, strangely adorable. Rick and Takori get their heads swapped and decide to go warn Tiff and Tuff and all of them about what's going on. Dedede is eventually threatened into putting everyone back to normal, which Cappy should use threats more often. Maybe break out the guillotine even. He seems to only rule over this one patch of land with a population of like 40 people, whomst all hate him. It's not like this is a giant nation ruled by a democracy and half the people are Dedede supporters. No, you guys have the privilege of breaking out the guillotine anytime you'd like, and yet you just keep not using it. That's right, I'm victim blaming the Cappies. Alright, so Rick and Takori alert the children about what's going on.
They got the right heads, but the wrong bodies!
No kidding, Columbo!
Wait, Columbo exists in the Kirby universe? What? Also, I just kind of appreciate this phrase. No kidding, Columbo, for when your TV-Y rating prevents you from saying no shit, Sherlock. Kirby shows up after Iberman smacks some duct tape over his mouth because he wouldn't shut up about Fofa. Then Dedede shows up, then Slicey Dicey ends up chopping Kirby in half with basically zero effort. But since monster magic, I guess, instead of chopping him into two bloody halves, this creates two little Kirbys. One that appears to be a boy and one that appears to be a girl.
Well, I guess we all have a male and a female side to our personality.
Are you ready to dissect that shit? If our personalities are half masculine and half feminine, then why did the majority of people just have the one gender? I mean, I guess it's saying that everyone has what are considered to be masculine traits and feminine traits, but since he's talking about personality, that's about the idea of gender as a social construct and not necessarily physical sex. So why does Kirby, who is a baby and probably doesn't care about what gender is, and is also gender neutral in Japan, split into male and female Kirbys? Are they just Kirby, but one contains all masculine traits and one contains all feminine? Or does the boy Kirby just have more gray matter density in his brain or something? And I mean, alright, as we find out later, this is how Lolo and Lala came to be, but Lolo isn't especially boyish and Lala isn't especially feminine. They act pretty much the same, almost identical even. Man, what the hell even is gender? Like, sure, I am what is known as girl, but I feel like I really don't have an attachment to that identity. I consider it kind of irrelevant to who I am as a person. Then there are people who are agender, a bigender, a gender fluid, or any shade of non-binary. Where would they even fit into this mess of a philosophy? There are people whose gender identity is very important to them, and they feel very connected to it, sometimes in a very horribly scary way. Would they even have another differently gendered half to their personality? Why am I questioning this? This is a baby show from like 2001. Whew. This line about the male and female sides of the personality isn't even in the original. There's no explanation in the original for why when you split one person into two persons, they come out as one boy and one girl. I think this line was something 4Kids thought up in some kind of desperate attempt to make sense of any of this. I'm sorry, 4Kids, but you can't. Don't think I don't appreciate the effort, though. However, instead of answering one question, you just raise several more specific questions. You get a sticker for trying, though. So Lolo and Lala run away with the little Kirbs and get them alone, and get a chance to really look at them and realize that they kinda look like them. Girl Kirby even has a giant bow and everything, and after all, a giant bow is just basic female anatomy.
But at least they know where they came from. Yeah, not like us.
Why are you questioning this now anyway? Why not 10 years ago? And seriously, why don't you remember? I'm assuming it's from the blows to the head, but we were never actually told. So, in order to keep the halves of Kirby safe, Lolo and Lala decide that they have to make the ultimate sacrifice. They have to be more than 10 feet apart from each other. The horror! They each take a Kirby and fly around trying to throw the really rottens off, resulting in a Scooby-Doo doors joke because, of course. Finally, Slice Endor Splice gets them cornered and is about to obliterate them into a fine paste, but stops for a sec because he recognizes Lolo and Lala, and decides to hold off on killing them to tell them their dumb backstory. Escargoon is contractually obligated to shut up and wait while exposition is happening. See, Slicey Splicey was the one who chopped Fofa Lola in half, creating them, after Nightmare decided to rip off Dedede by sending him his OC.
Well, King Sucker's back to get his pocket picked again.
Sell him, Fofa. Better yet, chop it and charge him double.
Brilliant idea, enemy.
You forgot to hang up. Ah, shit. Also, why did Dedede even order monsters before Kirby showed up? Is he just that big of an arbitrary dick to his subjects? And this is where the whole moronic twist should have been revealed. I do not know why that bomb was dropped so casually so early. The Kirby getting chopped in half to make two smaller Kirbys, the scene where Lolo and Lala speculate about how the Kirbys remind them of themselves, that was all the foreshadowing you needed. Then this reveal. And it would all make perfect sense. Yes, of course it'd be obvious anyway that that's what it was building up to, but this is a baby show. Everything is going to be at least a little predictable. The important thing is it isn't spoon-fed to us in the worst way. Also, Lolo and Lala being blue and pink makes sense because Fofa Lola was purple, so why for everyone else is the boy green and the girl orange? Shouldn't the little Kirbys be white and red? And yeah, I know blue is a primary color, so I guess I can't have that complaint about Dedede's halves. Whatever, it's not important, moving on.
Y'all look after these here scrawny rejects, cause I don't want them.
But Your Majesty!
We already have a brand new mouth to feed.
Then you're lucky these two ain't got no mouths.
Yeah, it makes them way easier to dub. You know, regardless of the uselessness of having the rods be Mr. Shine and Mr. Bright cameos, I don't even know why these rods are the sun and moon. I'm pretty sure it's not symbolic for anything. The moon isn't known for making genders. So, remember how Ibra and Like wanted to keep this info from Lolo and Lala because they were afraid it would make them sad?
Their hearts will break if they ever learn the real story.
Let's just hope they never hear the name of Fofa.
Well, turns out they were 100% wrong, and they are delighted.
We finally know where we came from. Right. We're not just Lolo and Lala. We're closer than that. We're really Fofa.
Good going, guys. You refuse to tell two people trying to make sense of themselves for 10 to 13 years where they came from for no reason. I know Ibra and Like aren't acting as Lolo and Lala's parents or anything, but I think this qualifies them at least a little for a sarcastic Parents of the Year award.
I wonder what that sunrod does.
Piss me off, mostly. So Tiff and Tuff finally come flying back into the plot. And blah blah blah, they manage to steal the sunrod and get to the roof where they mash Kirby back together. And the idea of splitting up Kirby into multiple smaller Kirbys was then used in Kirby's massive heart attack, and everyone promptly forgot about it. Thank God you knew mashing him with that sunrod would actually make him one person again and not just squash him like an extra juicy bug. Sean Splicer then catches up to them, and Kirby eats the moonrod, and once again, the most basic of abilities serves as our climax. Kirby becomes Cutter Kirby. Meta Knight pops in for all of 3 seconds to tell us that. Oh, now you decide to show up. Yeah, thanks so much for your help back there, Meta Knight. See, if I have severe depression from watching everything and everyone I've ever loved wither and die, and I physically cannot give a damn about every tiny stupid thing you people do, I'm not even going to stick around for the end of this. I have no attachment at all to these floating gumballs, and I do not care about how their situation turns out. I came here to tell you Kirby's ability, and that's it. I'm going to go lie back down. So, barely a fight happens, and Kirby chops Splicey Slicey in half. This does not make two smaller versions of him, but rather just straight up murders him. Which is a little more troubling than some other monsters, because he was like a talking, self-aware, person, but he's a robot, so we can show his on-screen death, don't worry about it. Kirby chops up Rick into Cory, and fortunately and unfortunately, this cutter works about the same as the moonrod, and instead of just getting gruesomely decapitated, they get smashed back together correctly. Tiff is about to mash Lolo and Lala back together, but they're characters from the game that combine into a character not from the game. We can't have what few canonical characters we have getting exiled from the show, and can't just go and mess with the status quo like that. So, the remains of Cutman abruptly explode, shattering the sunrod in its entirety, while the actual squishy living beings remain completely unharmed. While a minor disappointment for a second, Lolo and Lala seem, okay with this. This is how they've been for as long as they can remember, apparently, so they have no attachment to their former life as a singular being. They lived at Nightmare Enterprises, so it was probably quite terrible, actually.
We may have two bodies, but we got one heart.
It's actually a serious medical condition.
God, this episode is weird. No one was aching for this backstory. It will never be relevant again. You choose to focus one entire episode of the entire series on these two, and this is what you did with it. This didn't involve pushing things at all.
I'm not Fofa. I'm Lolo and I'm Lala.
No, you're Lolo and Lala. Oh, I feel like I talked way too fast, but I don't feel like recording this again.
And it wasn't quite me, and it wasn't quite you. I think it was someone entirely new.